the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with the new undisputed lightweight champion of the world, Islam Makhachev.
This thing's so heavy, bro.
What does it feel like to be the best fighter alive and still feel like you haven't done enough? What does it feel like to stand on top of the world championship belts, an unbeaten record that stretches years, fans chanting your name from Dagestan to New York City, and still carry weight that no title belt can lift? Islam Makhachev is 34 years old. He has done what almost no fighter in UFC history has ever done. He rose from a tiny mountain village in Russia where most kids never escape. He survived a heart condition that almost ended his career before it began. He lost his greatest mentor to death. He carried an entire culture on his back. He became lightweight champion. Then he vacated that belt and conquered welterweight too, making him a two-division champion in the most brutal sport on earth. And yet, the tragic reality of Islam Makhachev at 34 is something nobody is talking about. Not the fans, not the media, not even the people who scream his name the loudest. So today, we're going there. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit subscribe, because today's video is one you will not want to miss. We are going deep into life, the pain, the sacrifices, and the stunning reality of what it means to be Islam Makhachev in 2026. Let's start from the very beginning. October 27, 1991. In the mountains of Dagestan, Russia, a boy was born named Islam Ramazanovich Makhachev. He didn't come from money, he didn't come from fame. He came from a village called Burshi, a small, rugged, remote community in one of the most fiercely competitive combat sports regions on the entire planet. His father grew tomatoes and worked as a driver. His mother ran a small cafe just to keep the family going. There was no silver spoon. There was no safety net. There was only the mountains, the grind, and the culture of Dagestan, a culture that has produced more elite combat sports athletes per capita than almost anywhere on Earth. From the age of 7, Islam was drawn to fighting. He started with Taekwondo, then he moved into Sanda, then freestyle wrestling, then combat Sambo. He wasn't just trying sports, he was searching for something. Something that felt like home. And he found it on the wrestling mat. But here's what most people don't realize about growing up in Dagestan as a young fighter. It's not glamorous. It's not like the YouTube highlight reels. You wake up before sunrise. You train until your body begs you to stop. You go to school. You come back. You train again. There is no off switch. There is no "I'm tired today." In Dagestan, weakness isn't just frowned upon, it simply doesn't exist in the vocabulary. And in that environment, Islam Makhachev was just another kid trying to prove himself. Until one man saw something different in him. If you want to understand Islam Makhachev, you have to understand Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. Abdulmanap was a legend in Dagestani combat sports long before his son Khabib ever stepped foot in the UFC. He was a military veteran, a former judoka, a wrestling coach who was named by the Russian Book of Records as the most successful combat Sambo coach in the entire country. He ran training camps that were brutal in their intensity and meticulous in their detail. And he believed, from early on, that Islam Makhachev had something special. Abdulmanap took Islam under his wing and treated him not just as a student, but almost as a son. He didn't just teach Islam how to fight. He taught him how to think, how to compete, how to carry yourself, how to represent your culture, your faith, and your family with dignity, whether you're winning or losing. Abdulmanap's coaching philosophy extended far beyond the gym walls. He taught his fighters that becoming a champion was not just about victories. It was about becoming someone worthy of those victories. And Islam absorbed every single lesson. He trained alongside Khabib Nurmagomedov, the man who would become the most dominant lightweight champion in UFC history, learning the same brutal style, the same suffocating grappling, the same relentless pressure that would one day make the Dagestan wrestling school the most feared in all of MMA. But then, 20 arrived. The world was already in chaos. COVID-19 was tearing through countries, and in the middle of all that darkness, tragedy struck the heart of Team Makhachev. On July 3, 20, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov passed away. He was 57 years old, He died in Moscow from complications related to COVID-19. The man who had coached Islam since he was a teenager. The man who had seen his potential when no one else did. The man who was essentially a second father to him was gone. Think about what that does to a young fighter at that stage of his career. Islam was not yet a champion. He had not yet fulfilled the destiny that Abdulmanap saw in him. And now the man who believed in him most, the man who had mapped out his future, was gone. And just months later, Khabib Nurmagomedov, his training partner, his brother, his guide, retired from fighting after a win over Justin Gaethje at UFC 254, crying in the Octagon, saying he had promised his mother he would stop. Islam Makhachev was now essentially alone. His mentor was dead. His closest fighting brother had retired, and the world was watching to see if he would crumble. He didn't. In fact, he became something even greater. There is a part of Islam Makhachev's story that doesn't get nearly enough attention. A part that, if it had gone differently, would mean Islam was never a UFC champion at all. When Islam was a young combat sambo competitor, he had earned a spot to compete at the World Championships in Japan. This was a massive opportunity. International exposure. A chance to announce himself on the global stage. And then his heart stopped him, literally. Doctors discovered Islam had a heart rhythm issue, a condition serious enough that it required radiofrequency ablation treatment. For a young athlete, this is terrifying. Your heart, the very engine that powers every takedown, every scramble, every submission, is malfunctioning. And no doctor is going to clear you to fly to Japan and compete on an international stage with a heart condition like that. Islam was sidelined. He missed the World Championships. He watched from home while others competed for the title he had worked so hard to chase. Let that sink in for a moment. Here is a young man from a poor village in Dagestan. His entire life has been built around combat sports. He has given up his childhood, his social life, his comfort for the mat. And then his own body betrays him before he even gets his shot. Most people would have walked away. Most people would have said, maybe this isn't meant for me. Islam didn't walk away. He got the treatment. He recovered. He came back. And in 2016, he not only reclaimed the national Sambo title, he went on to win gold at the World Combat Sambo Championship, the same tournament that had been taken from him years before. He made sure he didn't miss it again. This is the thing about Islam Makhachev that people who only know his UFC highlights don't understand. Every single thing he has achieved has come through a wall of adversity. There was no clear path. There was no easy road. There was always something trying to stop him. And every single time, he stopped the thing that was trying to stop him instead. Islam Makhachev made his UFC debut in 2015 at UFC 187. He submitted Leo Kuntz in the second round. Most people don't even remember that fight. Islam was barely a blip on the UFC radar. He was just another guy trying to make it. But Islam knew something the fans didn't know yet. He was building. Over the next several years, Islam quietly put together one of the most dominant streaks in lightweight history. Fight after fight, submission after submission, his record grew. His grappling became more suffocating. His game planning became more precise. Khabib, now coaching from the corner, was turning Islam into a machine. But the road wasn't all smooth. In 2015, Islam suffered his only professional MMA loss, a stunning defeat to Adriano Martins at UFC 192. A fighter who, for context, was later cut from the UFC and finished his career losing 6 of his final 7 fights. It was humbling, it was embarrassing. It was exactly what Islam needed. Years later, Islam would say something remarkable about that loss. He said, "If you ask me, of course I want to believe this. It was something important that made me become more of a great fighter. I learned a lot from this fight. Maybe if I did not lose, I would not have become a champion." That is not just a quote. That is a philosophy. That is the mindset of a man who refuses to let failure be anything other than fuel. After the Martins loss, Islam never lost again in professional MMA. Not once. 27 consecutive victories. Against some of the most dangerous fighters on the planet. He put together a run so dominant that the UFC literally had no choice but to give him a title shot. And when they finally did, he didn't waste it. At UFC 280 in Abu Dhabi in October 2022, Islam Makhachev submitted Charles Oliveira in the second round to become the UFC lightweight champion of the world. The boy from the mountains of Dagestan, the fighter with the bad heart, the man who lost his mentor and carried on alone, was now a world champion. And once Islam became champion, he didn't just hold the belt. He dominated with it. His first defense, Alexander Volkanovski, at UFC 284, a 5-round war. Islam won by unanimous decision against one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world. His second defense, a rematch with Volkanovski at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. This time, it wasn't even close. Islam knocked Volkanovski out in the first round. The same man he'd scraped past months earlier, demolished in under 5 minutes. His third defense, Dustin Poirier at UFC 302 in June 2024. A tough fight that went 5 rounds. Islam submitted the diamond to retain his belt, and in that fight, Islam badly injured his hand. An MRI confirmed a partial ligament tear. He said publicly, "I might even have to have surgery." He recovered, he came back. His fourth defense, Renato Moicano at UFC 311 in January 2025, submitted in the first round. Islam had now set a new record, 4 successful defenses, a number no other lightweight champion had ever reached. But records weren't enough for Islam Makhachev. In May 2025, he did something extraordinary. He vacated the lightweight championship, the belt he had bled for, trained a lifetime for, defended 4 times, and he moved up to welterweight to chase a second belt, not because he had anything left to prove at lightweight, but because Islam Makhachev, 33 years old, still wasn't satisfied, still wasn't done, still had something left to accomplish. And on November 15, 2025, at Madison Square Garden, the most iconic sports arena in the world, Islam Makhachev defeated Jack Della Maddalena by unanimous decision to become the UFC welterweight champion. 2 belts, 2 divisions, 1 man from a mountain village in Dagestan. The crowd erupted. His team erupted, and Islam, as always, stayed calm, because this was never about emotion for him. This was always about purpose. Now, here is where we get into the real story, because the belts, as impressive as they are actually the easiest part of what I want to tell you today. The tragic reality of Islam Makhachev at 34 years old is not about championships. It's about what championships cost. Islam is married. He has been since April 8, 2021, when he wed in a traditional Dagestani ceremony in Makhachev. A huge celebration attended by thousands, including fellow fighters from across the combat sports world. But here is what's remarkable, and what speaks to everything about who Islam is as a person. Nobody knows his wife's name, not a rumor, not a leaked photo, not a single Instagram post with her face. His wife, the mother of his 3 children, has essentially never appeared in public. Not once has her name been confirmed to the media. She is protected, intentionally, completely, in an era where every celebrity's personal life is broadcast for the world to consume, where athletes post their relationships before they even officially begin. Islam Makhachev has built an invisible wall around the people he loves most, and that wall has held completely. He confirmed in a conversation with fellow fighter Demetrius Johnson that he has 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. When asked how many kids he had, he simply replied, 3, girl, boy, boy, no names, no ages, no photos. And in that same conversation, he said something that reveals so much about the man beneath the champion. He said, "They wake up 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning. It bothers me, but I still sleep with my kids always because I miss them because I travel a lot." Read that again. This is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. The man who just conquered 2 weight classes in the UFC, who trains at the American Kickboxing Academy in San Jose, California for months at a time, away from everything he knows. And when he finally comes home to Dagestan, when he finally gets to put down the training gear and just be a person, he sleeps with his kids because he misses them so much. That is not the life of a superstar. That is the life of a man carrying an enormous weight. He has been spotted in Dagestan riding horses with his daughter. He takes part in local rest ball events, a traditional Dagestani sport, in the off-season. He is, by every account, a deeply private, deeply family-oriented man who happens to be the most dominant fighter on the planet. But here's the tragedy. He can't fully be that man. Not yet. Not while the belt is around his waist. Every training camp pulls him away from those children who wake up at 4 in the morning. Every title defense means weeks and months away from a wife whose name the world doesn't even know. Every pound cut, every sparring session, every media obligation, it's all time he can't get back. Time his kids grow without him in the room, and Islam is 34 years old now. His mother, the woman who ran the small cafe in Dagestan, who kept the family going when money was tight, has reportedly told him, "You're champion now. Wrap it up." A mother telling her son, "You've done enough. Come home." And Islam Makhachev, the man who never says die, who gets up every single time he's knocked down, is now in a battle he can't win with a submission. He's in a battle with time itself. Here is another reality that doesn't fit neatly into the highlight reels. Islam Makhachev's body is paying the price. After his fight with Dustin Poirier at UFC 302 in June 2024, Islam revealed publicly that he was dealing with a severe hand injury. An MRI confirmed a partial ligament tear. He said, and I quote directly, "My hand continues to bother me. If not, I might even have to have surgery." He described going into that fight with a lot of minor injuries that had accumulated, and he said he wanted to give his body time to recover before returning. But Islam being Islam, he couldn't stay out long. Because there are always contenders. There is always someone calling him out. There is always another title defense to plan, another camp to run, another weight cut to survive. As of May 2026, 6 months after his welterweight title win, his manager Ali Abdelaziz confirmed that Islam is dealing with injury issues again. The plan is for him to return in July 2026 at International Fight Week to defend his welterweight belt. Abdelaziz said, "He has some injury stuff going on, but he has a fight in the summer. He have a welterweight #1 contender match against someone. 6 months of recovery, injuries still nagging, and he's already in the next camp." This is what nobody talks about when they talk about elite MMA fighters. The sport is not just demanding, it is destructive. It destroys hands, knees, hips, necks. It destroys sleep patterns and dietary rhythms. It destroys time. Every fight takes something from the body that doesn't come back the same way. And at 34 years old, Islam Makhachev is now in the age bracket where every injury takes longer to heal, where every training camp takes a greater physical toll than the last, where the margin for error, in health, in recovery, in preparation, gets thinner and thinner with every passing month. The question hanging over everything now is not whether Islam can still beat anyone put in front of him. He probably can. The question is, at what cost? There is one more layer to the tragic reality of Islam Makhachev at 34 that doesn't get discussed enough in Western MMA media. The weight of Dagestan. Islam Makhachev is not just a UFC champion. He is a symbol. He is the flag bearer for an entire region, an entire culture, an entire way of life. In Dagestan, combat sports are not entertainment. They are identity. They are heritage. They are the way a small, remote region announces itself to the world and says, "We are here. We are strong. We matter." When Islam wins, Dagestan wins. When he walks into the Octagon, millions of people in that mountainous region are walking in with him. The pressure is not just athletic. It is cultural. It is spiritual. It is generational. He carries Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov's legacy. He carries Khabib's torch. He carries his family name. He carries the expectations of every young Dagestani kid who wants to believe that where you come from doesn't limit where you can go. That is an extraordinary burden to carry on human shoulders. And Islam does it, almost without complaint, without drama, without the chest-thumping and trash-talking that characterizes so much of modern MMA. He doesn't do social media wars. He doesn't do YouTube beef. He doesn't manufacture drama to keep his name trending. He just fights and wins and goes home. But even that quiet dignity comes at a cost, because the world of modern sports media, built on controversy and clickbait and drama, doesn't know what to do with a champion who simply refuses to perform for the cameras, who won't give them the soundbite, who won't sell out his privacy for more followers. In a culture that rewards loudness, Islam's silence is sometimes misread as coldness. His privacy is sometimes mistaken for arrogance. His discipline is sometimes presented as boring. And Islam Makhachev, who has given everything to this sport, watches the sport sometimes reward the talkers over the fighters. That is its own quiet tragedy. So here we are, May 2026. Islam Makhachev is 34 years old. He is the reigning UFC welterweight champion. He is preparing for what is expected to be a July 2026 return at International Fight Week, defending his belt against a top contender. With Carlos Prates emerging as one of the most talked-about potential challengers. Prates himself has said, "I'm a BJJ black belt. The takedown threat doesn't scare me." And Daniel Cormier, a former champion himself, has gone on record saying Prates looked more impressive than Islam in recent fights. The super fight that everyone was hoping for. Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria, the featherweight champion who had publicly claimed he would submit Islam in front of Khabib, appears to have fallen apart amid accusations flying from both sides about who is to blame. Which means Islam's path forward is complicated, uncertain, and full of the political maneuvering that plagues the top of every sport. And here is where the tragic reality of being Islam Makhachev really crystallizes. He is at the very peak of his powers. His record is 28-1. He has conquered 2 weight divisions. He has avenged every doubt that was ever cast on him. He has fulfilled the prophecy that Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov whispered into his ear back in Dagestan all those years ago. But peak powers don't last forever. At 34, the window is closing, not slamming shut, but narrowing. Every elite athlete feels it eventually. The recovery gets harder, the hunger shifts, the priorities evolve. And the mind, which has been locked on championship goals for decades, starts to wonder what comes after the belt. His mother says he should retire. His 3 children miss him when he travels. His body carries the wear of years of elite competition. And yet, the competitor in him, the boy from Burshi who promised himself he would be a world champion, that part of Islam Makhachev is not finished yet. The tragedy of Islam Makhachev at 34 is not failure. It is the opposite of failure. The tragedy is that greatness costs everything. And he has paid everything, with his body, his time, his privacies, his presence in the lives of his children, to get here. And the moment he stops paying, the moment he puts down the belts and walks away, there is a version of the story that says the world will move on faster than any of us would like to admit. Because that is what the sports world does. It consumes its champions, it builds them up, and then it waits for the next one. Islam Makhachev knows this. You can see it in the seriousness of his interviews, in the deliberateness of every decision he makes. He knows that the window is not unlimited. He knows that his mother is right, even if he isn't ready to say it out loud yet. And so he does what he has always done. He trains, he prepares, he protects his family. He says little and wins much. The boy from the mountains of Dagestan is not done yet. But the clock is ticking, and for the first time in his career, you can almost hear it. Islam Makhachev, at 34 years old, is simultaneously the most dominant force in mixed martial arts and a man standing at the crossroads of everything that makes a life meaningful. Championships versus family, legacy versus longevity. The champion they need him to be versus the father and husband he wants to be. He has survived a heart condition, the death of his greatest mentor, years of being overlooked and underestimated, serious injuries, and the impossible expectations of an entire culture. He has never once let them see him break. But behind the championship belt, behind the stoic face and the iron grip, is a 34-year-old man who sleeps with his kids when he's home because he misses them too much not to. A man whose own mother is begging him to come home for good. A man who has given the sport everything. That's not a tragic story in the traditional sense. There's no villain. There's no rock-bottom moment. There's no downfall. The tragedy of Islam Makhachev is the tragedy of every great champion who ever lived. That greatness, real, lasting, undeniable greatness, doesn't come free. It comes at the cost of the very things that make life worth living. And the only question left, the one nobody can answer except Islam himself, is how much more he is willing to pay. That's the real story of Islam Makhachev at 34. And now you know it. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. Seriously. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Islam Makhachev should retire soon, Or do you think he has more to prove? I want to read every single one. Don't forget to like this video if you got something from it. It helps the channel more than you know. Subscribe if you haven't already. We drop videos like this every week on the biggest stories in sports and celebrity life. And I'll see you in the next one.